So here I put the Gazania flower into a vase. I just stuffed the vase with a little bit of a paper towel. That way the stem, I don't have to make a very large stem, but you could also make a large stem depending on the vase that you use. But you can see how the craft wire holds it up nicely, and the flower looks beautiful. This is my Crochet Lab dog. It has a separate video tutorial also for the hat and for his outfit, his pet outfit, which fits a large dog. And then you could see how he's holding the Gazania flowers. I just attached them to the paw. So the top portion is attached with a ribbon, and then the bottom portion with just a piece of yarn where you can actually just cut the yarn away to remove the flowers. For this crochet project I used my 3.75mm crochet hook, as well as a tapestry needle and a pair of scissors. If you want a smaller flower, you can go with a smaller crochet hook, but I wanted a large flower to go with my project. You can have fun with the colors. I'm just going to show you the yarn that I use so you can get an equivalent styled yarn. For the green portion I used Karen's Simply Soft. This color is soft green. Here's some information about this yarn, and you're not going to use it all. The other green colored portion of the flower that I used is yarn by Karen United. Here's some information about this yarn, and again, you're not going to be using more than one skein of any yarn that I'm using. And this is a fresh green color. For the gold portion I used Red Heart Super Saver. For the burgundy color I used Vanna's Choice, some of my leftover Vanna's Choice yarn. For the yellow portion I used Lion Brand yarn, and this color is Honeybee. For the light brown color I used this Toasted Almond colored yarn, and this is from I Love This Yarn. We're going to start with the receptacle for the flower first, so I used my soft green color for that. The craft wire that I used is by Doris Craft Designer. It's a brass wire, 26 gauge gold wire. And if you're going to use this, you have to be very careful because it's very springy and sharp, and you don't want it to hit you in the eye or in the face. So if you're going to use this craft wire, just remember it is very what's called wiry, and it's springy, so it'll snap and snap around, and so you just have to be very careful it doesn't hit you in the face. And no, it didn't hit me in the face. You're also going to need a stronger craft wire for the stem of the flower. I just used this copper wire that I found at the hardware store. But if you don't have access to this copper wire for your stem, you can get a small slender stick, and that will also work to strengthen the craft wire, the skinny craft wire. We're going to start with the magic circle, so just drape the yarn across your 4 fingers, use your thumb to stabilize, wrap the yarn around your 2 middle fingers twice, and then hold it in place with your pinky and your thumb. Then just take your crochet hook, go under that loop, bring up a loop, yarn over, turn the hook upside down, and then go through that loop for a slip knot. Then you're going to go back under the 2 loops, bring up a loop. You're going to make a single crochet. Then you're going to chain 2. 1, 2. So that's going to count as your first double crochet. We're going to make 9 more double crochet into the magic circle. The first thing you're going to do is just yarn over, go into the magic circle, bring up a loop, You're going to have 3 loops on your hook. Yarn over, turn the hook upside down and go through 2 of the loops. You have 2 loops remaining. Yarn over, turn the hook upside down and go through the 2 remaining loops. Then you're just going to make 8 more for a total of 10 double crochet, counting your first chain 3. So that's a total of 3. I'm going to show you one more on video tutorial and then I'll let you finish. You just yarn over, go into the magic circle, bring up a loop, make your double crochet, so go ahead, finish your total of 10, so counting that first chain 3 we made, which was the single crochet and 2 chains, and then 2, 3, and 4. So go ahead, finish a total of 10 and then come back. So it's 10 double crochet. After you finish your 10 double crochet, you just take your forefinger and thumb. You're going to hold the base of the 10 double crochet. You have these 2 loops on the opposite side. You're going to pull on one of them. If it doesn't close, let go and pull on the other one, but this one's closing. Then just let go and pull on that loose yarn end. Then you can go ahead and make a slip stitch into the top stitch of that first chain 3 that we made. So here, I'm just going to grab my tapestry needle to show you. Here was the single crochet that we made. This is your first chain 1, and then here's your chain 2. So you're going to go into that top stitch of that first chain 3 that we made. Then you can go ahead and make a slip stitch. So you just yarn over, turn the hook upside down, and then go through both loops for a slip stitch, and then you joined it into a circle. Then you can turn it over and just pull on that loose yarn end gently to close up the center of the magic circle. Now you're going to make a chain of 1. Then you're going to make 1 single crochet into every stitch around for a total of 10. So that's 2. 3. Make 1 more with you. 4. So go ahead, finish 1 single crochet into every stitch around for a total of 10, and then come back. Now you can go ahead and turn your work. It's forming a little bit of a cup for your receptacle for the flower. You're going to go ahead and take your yarn marker. I'm just using one of my scraps of yarn. Just place it right where you left off. Then you're going to make 2 single crochet into every stitch around. So 2 single crochet into every stitch around back to the yarn marker, and then you're going to come back. I'm just going to show you a couple of them. So 2 single crochet in every stitch. I made this stitch a little tight. There we go. Show you one more. So go ahead, finish making 2 single crochet in every stitch around, and then come back. Now you're just going to move the yarn marker up, and you're going to make 1 single crochet in every stitch around for 2 rounds, and then come back. So 2 rounds of 1 single crochet in every stitch around. Then you can see how you have a little cup forming, which will form the receptacle for the flower. Then you just take your crochet hook, go into the next stitch over. We're going to make a slip stitch. Just yarn over, turn the hook upside down, and bring the yarn through both loops on the hook. Then you can go ahead and finish off. Just yarn over and pull enough yarn through to bury the yarn into your work. Now we're going to make the petals. So you're going to take your whatever color yarn that you want for the petals. For mine, I'm using a burgundy color. Then you're going to take where you finished off. You're going to take your crochet hook, go right into that same stitch where you just finished off. You're going to bring up a loop with your new colored yarn for the petal. Go ahead and chain 1. And then just tie a knot. Then you're going to start with a chain of 16. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. Make 1 more with you. 5. So go ahead, finish a chain of 16, and then come back. You're just going to take your crochet hook, and you're going to go into the second chain from the hook. Go ahead and bring up a loop. You're going to make a single crochet, and then you're going to make 1 single crochet into the next 5 stitches. That's 3. 4, and 5. Now you're going to make a half double crochet into the rest of the stitches back to the receptacle of the flower. I'm going to show you a couple of them. So for a half double crochet, you're just going to yarn over. You're going to go into the next stitch. You're going to bring up a loop. Then you're going to yarn over, turn the hook upside down, and go through all 3 loops for a half double crochet. Then you're just going to make a half double crochet into the rest of the stitches. So in each stitch, just 1 half double crochet. So I'm going to show you 1 more. I'm going to yarn over, go into the next stitch, bring up a loop, 3 loops on the hook, yarn over, turn the hook upside down, and go through all 3 for a half double crochet. So this is how my work looks so far, and I'm back to the receptacle. I have the right side facing me. I'm going to take my crochet hook and go into that next stitch over and make a slip stitch. So you just yarn over, bring up a loop, and then bring that loop through the other loop on the crochet hook for a slip stitch. Then you just slip stitched 1 petal to your receptacle. Then you're just going to go into the next stitch, make a single crochet, then you're going to go into the next stitch, make a single crochet, and then chain 16 and repeat and make your petals. So go ahead, finish making your petals all the way around, and then come back. So for my flower, I have 10 petals. This is what my petals look like all the way around. Then when you're finished with your last petal, you can go ahead and make a slip stitch. Let me just grab my yarn. So I'm going to go into this next stitch, the first one that we made, the petal. Go in there with your crochet hook and then go ahead and make a slip stitch. You just yarn over and bring the yarn through both loops on the hook. Then you can go ahead and finish off. Just yarn over and pull enough yarn through to bury into your work. Now you're going to go ahead and grab your craft wire and you're going to cut off a large amount. It cuts easily with a pair of scissors. And I made about, let's see, it's 23, 46, around 60 inches to start with. You may need more than that, but I found that it's easier if I just cut it off of the loop that I have it on. If you have too much trouble using the longer craft wire, I'm going to show you how to use a smaller craft wire for the rest of the petals. You can take a smaller amount of craft wire and then just measure the petal with your craft wire. So here you can see I have the length of the petal with my wire. Then I'm just going to take the two ends of the wire and just wrap the ends around each other. And then you just form a little loop. And you can just stick the loop on the petal and then crochet the loop onto the petal that way. You might find that easier than trying to use a long wire strand. The only reason I like the long wire strand better is because it's easier not to have these little pokey ends on the flower. But if you're good at getting the ends down or even folding the pokey ends on themselves like this back onto each other, then you won't have those poking through on your flower. So that's the only reason I like the other method, but you'll find which method you like best and then you'll work with that. And then you would just crochet around the wire the same way that you did with the longer wire. So whatever method that you want to use for your flower. The first thing I did was just take the end of the craft wire that I cut and go right through the center of the magic circle of the receptacle. And this craft wire is great because it has kind of a pointy end that fits easily through your work. Then you're going to go towards your first. I'm going to be starting along this petal where I finished off with my loose yarn ends. So I'm going to go right through at the base, just through one stitch at the base of my first petal. And then just bring through some of the craft wire. Just be careful you don't kink or twist your craft wire, just because it makes it harder to bring it through. Go ahead and just bring through a lot of your craft wire, and then you're going to leave a little bit of the craft wire for the stem. So for mine, I left around 7 to 8 inches approximately for the stem. Then you just go back to the beginning, and again you can make a shorter craft wire if this is just too much to start with, but I like to work with as much as I can. Then you're just going to take and come up through the tip of the petal and then just bring through the wire. And again, you could see how wiry it is and how it springs back, so you have to just be careful that you don't hit yourself in the face or eye with the wire. Then you can see how it kind of lines up along the petal. Then you're going to take and loop it and bring it down to the base of the petal. and then you just take the end. I'm just going to find my end. And then you're just going to take the end of the wire and then go to the base again. Make sure that you don't twist your wire. And then I just come up through the right side into the wrong side. And we're going to be crocheting around this wire, so you don't have to worry about the wire showing through. And then it just went through the other side. There we go. And then I have one petal finished. And then I'm just going to do this with the rest of my wire around each of the petals until I run out. And then I'm going to show you how to crochet around the wire. So here you can see I was able to get the wire around 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then with the excess wire, I just wrapped it around the last portion of my wire. As you're putting your wire through each of the petals, make sure that as you're progressing around each petal, that your previous petals, the wire doesn't shorten, because it's harder to pull the wire through to get the length back for the petals. Meaning that if it's short here and you're all the way down here on this petal, you're not going to be able to pull the wire through to fix it. So as you're placing the wire, make sure that you hold it in place as you place the next petal's wire. Now if you have difficulties working with such a long wire, you can shorten it and then just wrap the wire around the remaining wire on your previous petal, if it's easier for you to do it that way. For me, I just wanted to get as many petals as I could with the wire, and this is how mine turned out. So now I still have some remaining petals that need wire, but before I cut some more wire and place it, I'm going to go ahead and start crocheting the petals. So I'm going to start with my first petal where I finished off. So go ahead and get whatever color you want for the outer portion of the petal. I'm using yellow. So I'm going to go ahead and start with my first petal that I placed the wire. So I'm going to go ahead and join right where I finished off. And anytime you can get under the wire, you go ahead and get under the wire. And also before you start, make sure that you don't have too much of your gold showing through on the opposite side. As you can see on mine, I don't have any showing on the right side of the flower. I'm going to go ahead and bring up a loop with my new color. And then I'm going to chain 1. And then you can tie a knot. Then you're ready to make a single crochet on the first petal. So you go into that first stitch on the petal. Make sure you grab both loops. And then you want to go behind the gold craft wire, or whatever color craft wire you have. You're going to bring up a loop and then make a single crochet. Then you're going to go into the next stitch on the petal. I'm grabbing both loops on the petal of the next stitch. I'm going behind the craft wire. I'm going to bring up a loop. And then I'm going to make a single crochet. Then I'm going to make 5 half double crochets, and as you can see, I'm crocheting around the wire, securing the wire in place. So then you're going to yarn over, you're going to go into the next stitch, go behind the craft wire, bring up a loop, make a half double crochet. So you just yarn over, turn the hook upside down, and go through all 3 loops. And then you're just going to make 5 half double crochets. So you're going to go 1 half double crochet into the next 5 stitches, going behind the craft wire, and then just making your half double crochet. So that's 2. 3. 4. 5. Since this is my first petal, the stem keeps coming out from the bottom of my receptacle, so I just kind of cinch that back down and make sure that my wire is still the length of the petal, and make sure you're not pulling the wire from your next petal. Then, after you finish your 5th half double crochet, you're going to make double crochets into the rest of the stitches towards the top or the tip of the petal. So you just yarn over, go into the next stitch, go behind your craft wire still, and then you're going to make a double crochet. So you just yarn over, go through 2, and then yarn over and go through 2. So I'm just going to make a double crochet into each stitch going behind the craft wire all the way to the tip. Then you can see how I have a couple of stitches around the tip of the petal. I'm just going to make a half double crochet around the tip of the petal. I'm still going behind the gold craft wire. And you may need a couple half double crochets at the tip. Just make sure you go behind your craft wire. I'm going to place 1 more half double crochet into the tip. And then I'm ready to turn towards the opposite side. And start crocheting down the opposite side towards the next petal. So I'm going to make a couple more half double crochets. I'm going to make 1 more on the opposite side at the tip, going behind the craft wire. I'm going to place 1 more in the same stitch as I turn the corner. Let me repeat that one, kind of fragmented the yarn a little bit. Then I'm going to make a half double crochet into the next stitch. Then I'm ready to start my double crochets. You can see how it's starting to make a beautiful petal, and I'm covering the craft wire. So I'm going to make a double crochet into the next stitch. And then you're just going to make double crochets across from the double crochets on the other side. So when I reach the half double crochet, I'm going to make a half double crochet into those stitches until I get to the last 2 stitches. Then I'll make a single crochet. So I'm just going to show you as I crochet down the opposite side. So I'm making double crochets across from the other side's double crochets. And you can see how you're creating a beautiful petal, and you're securing the gold craft wire underneath. So now I'm going to make half double crochets. And then I have 3 stitches left. I'm going to make another half double crochet. And then I'm going to make a single crochet. And then a single crochet. Then I'm going to slip stitch into the base of the receptacle where the petal attaches to the receptacle. Make sure you're still going behind the craft wire. So I'm slip stitching it in place. Then you can make a single crochet into the next stitch over, and I'm still going behind the craft wire. You can move your petal out of the way if you need to. And then I'm going to make a single crochet into the next stitch. Then I'm going to start going up to the next petal and working the exact same way. So I'm going to make a single crochet into the first stitch of the petal. Make a single crochet into the next stitch of the petal. Then I'm going to make my 5 half double crochets and then the double crochets, just like I did for the previous petal. And then you're going to do that for every petal all the way around. When you come back, I'll show you how I attached new wire for the petals that don't have wire. So this is what mine looks like so far. It's turning out really well. I finished 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 petals. Then, after you're finished crocheting around your gold wire, if you still have a little bit showing through, you can always take the same colored yarn and then just come through from the wrong side with your tapestry needle, and then just secure any of the gold craft wire that's showing through on the right side. I like my long wire method, so I'm going to finish the rest of my petals with the longer wire. So go ahead and make sure you finish all of your petals, and then if you're using the longer wire like me, I just looped a little bit of the wire around itself to start, and then I just use the same method. Just go through each petal with your craft wire. Then when you finish your last petal, you can go ahead and slip stitch into the next stitch. Just yarn over and bring the yarn through both loops on the hook. Then go ahead and finish off. Just yarn over and pull enough yarn through to bury into your work. After you're finished, you can take your tapestry needle and you can take the same colored yarn and just cover any gold craft wire or any craft wire that's showing. Then you can take and just tie a knot with the loose yarn ends in the center, and make sure that you trim the loose yarn ends as well. So here I don't have a loose yarn end that's close to this loose yarn end, so I'm just going to take and just tie a knot. Then just cut the loose yarn end short because we're going to put a centerpiece for the flower, so all of these loose yarn ends will be covered. On the inside. And then on the right side you can see here's the receptacle, and then you still have the wire that's coming through. So this is what my flower looks like so far. I have all of the loose yarn ends in the center and all of my beautiful petals. You can twist your petals to make them stay the way that you want. And now I'm going to show you how to make the centerpiece. For the corolla of the flower, I'm using my gold colored yarn. I'm going to start with the magic circle. We're going to start with the slip knot, so you just bring up a loop, yarn over, go through the loop for your slip knot. Then you're going to go into the magic circle, bring up a loop. You're going to make a single crochet. Then you're going to chain 2. So this is going to count as our first chain 3, or the first double crochet. And just like we did before, we're going to place 9 double crochet into the magic circle, and that will give us a total of 10 double crochet, counting our starting chain in the magic circle, just like we did before. Go ahead, finish your 9 double crochet into the magic circle, and then come back. Now you can take your forefinger and thumb and hold the base of the 12 double crochet, and then go ahead and close the magic circle, and then just turn your work. We're going to work in rounds. So you're going to make a slip stitch into that top stitch of the first chain 3 that we made, just like we did before. So go into the top stitch, and then you're going to make a slip stitch, so just yarn over and pull the yarn through both loops on the hook. Then you can go ahead and close the center of your magic circle if you need to. Then go ahead and chain 1. And then to help you keep track of your stitches, go ahead and get your yarn marker and then just place it right where you left off. That first chain 1 is going to count as your first stitch for the round. So in the second stitch, you're just going to place 2 single crochet into the same stitch. And then 1 single crochet into the next stitch, 2 single crochet into the second stitch, and then just repeat that pattern all the way around back to the yarn marker. I'll make one more set with you. 1 single crochet into the first stitch, and then 2 single crochet into the second stitch. So go ahead, repeat that pattern all the way around back to the yarn marker, and then come back. Then you're going to take and Move the yarn marker up, and for this increase round you're going to make 1 single crochet into the first 2 stitches and then 2 single crochet into the 3rd stitch. And then go ahead and repeat that pattern all the way around. So 1 single crochet into 2 stitches and then 2 single crochet into the 3rd stitch. Then repeat that pattern all the way around back to the yarn marker. Then you're going to take and remove the yarn marker, and we're going to take our next colored yarn. I'm using just a light brown colored yarn. And then I'm going to take my crochet hook, go into the next stitch over to bring up a loop. Then I have 2 loops on my hook. I'm going to bring in the light brown colored yarn, and then I'm just going to bring up a loop, bring them through both gold loops. Then you can go into the next stitch and bring up a loop and then make a single crochet. Then you can just turn your work. Make sure that you tie a knot, joining the 2 colored yarns. You can go ahead and cut the gold colored yarn, and we're just going to continue crocheting with the light brown colored yarn. And you're just going to make 1 single crochet in every stitch around with the light brown. So 1 single crochet for 1 round. Then when you reach the first stitch, go ahead and make a slip stitch into that first stitch. So just take your crochet hook, go into that first stitch, yarn over, and then bring the yarn through both loops on the hook. Then go ahead and finish off. Just yarn over and make sure that you pull enough yarn through to sew this middle portion onto your flower. Then you just take the centerpiece, the corolla, and center it over all of the loose yarn ends in the center of your flower. And then you're going to take your tapestry needle and you're just going to take and sew all along the brown edge of the corolla and sew it in place to your flower. So this is what it looks like on the back of the flower, and this is what it looks like on the front of the flower. So I finished up on the back of the flower, and then I'm just going to tie a knot. Here's my wire for the stem. Just going to move that aside, and then just tie a knot. Then to bury the loose yarn end, what I do is just go right in with the rest of the loose yarn ends. Make sure you don't come through the front of the flower. That won't look pretty. And then just bury your loose yarn end. And then just trim the remaining. And now you're ready for the stem. And you can see how this craft wire is definitely not thick enough to hold up this flower. It's too heavy, so that's why I'm using the heavier duty craft wire. But the first thing I'm going to do is just wrap some green yarn around the flimsy craft wire. The first thing I'm going to do is just form a loop, a small loop at the bottom by wrapping the craft wire over on itself. That way I have a little loop for tying the green yarn onto, and you can kind of cinch down the loop at the bottom, and this is what it looks like so far. Now I'm going to get my green yarn. So then I'm just going to take my green yarn, put it right through the loop, just tie a knot. And then I'm going to go ahead and just put my heavier duty craft wire right next to this flimsy one. I'm going to cut the length that I want for the stem. And I like this heavy duty wire because it'll cut with just my regular scissors. Now for my flower, I want it to stand up a little bit straighter. So you can go right into the tip of the receptacle and bring through the wire on the receptacle, and then just kind of fold down on the wire just a little bit, and then just bring the craft wire down, the skinnier craft wire, and then you're able to wrap the green yarn around both tightly. At the top of the receptacle, I just use the same colored yarn as the top of the receptacle on my tapestry needle. And then I'm just going to hold the wire up on itself, and then just go at the base of the receptacle with your tapestry needle, and make sure that you leave enough of a loose yarn end for tying a knot. And then just go right back through. And then go ahead and tie a knot. Then I just took and wrapped around. First I'm just going to bury my loose yarn end. Then I just take and wrap around with the same colored yarn as the receptacle, just around the top portion of the looped over, about half of the looped over craft wire. So you can see how I just kind of tightly wrapped it around the top portion of the craft wire. Then I'm just going to take and tie a knot, and then just bury the loose yarn end. To tie a knot, I just went through the center of the loop created by the craft wire. And then with the excess green yarn, you can wrap that with the darker green yarn. Then I just go back to the bottom, and then I just securely wrap tightly. And you can come back if you want to cover more of the tip of the stem, but then you just go towards the top of the flower, just wrapping the loose flimsy craft wire with the stronger craft wire. You can see how it makes a beautiful stem. Then you can see how I just kind of tightly wrapped the green yarn around the craft wire, and you can go over it as many times as you want until you get the craft wire completely covered. And then at the bottom I just tied a knot. And then you can just kind of bury your loose yarn end. And then just trim the loose yarn end, and then you have your stem and your flower. Then you have your gorgeous Gazania flower with a sturdy stem. The first thing you're going to do is just gather your materials. I'm using my glass baking bowl for the oven. And then also the main ingredient is this bitter melon. It's also known as or called Goya. I'm using a spray, olive oil spray for the bread or the oven container, glass container. You're going to need a lemon and vegetable oil. I'm using extra virgin olive oil, 2 eggs, baking powder, and then also regular flour and sugar. I cleaned the bitter melon really well, and then I just cut off the ends with a knife. Then I'm going to grate the bitter melon. You're going to need about a 1/2 cup of grated Goya or bitter melon. I have 1 left that I'm going to use in a different recipe. If you go to my Helen May Crochet YouTube channel Facebook group, it's free to join. Sometimes I put fun recipes there along with crochet ideas, and other group members also share group ideas. So I'm going to use this bitter melon for another recipe. And then we're only going to need a 1/2 cup of grated bitter melon for this recipe. Inside your bitter melon you have these little seed-like pieces inside the bitter melon. I didn't use these when I grated my melon. If you haven't already, go ahead and set your oven to 325 degrees. Go ahead and add 2 eggs and a 1/3 cup of sugar to a mixing bowl, and then use a whisk to mix it. Add the Goya and 4 tablespoons of oil, vegetable oil, and then mix that up. In a separate mixing bowl, put a cup of flour and a teaspoon of baking powder and mix that together. Then just take that flour mixture and slowly add and mix at the same time. You can also add a teaspoon of your grated lemon peel into the mix now. When you're mixing the flour in, you can use a regular mixing spoon because it does thicken up a little bit. Then just put it into a greased baking dish. I actually ended up cooking mine for 30 minutes. After cooking it for 30 minutes, I just put my butter knife into the center and it came out clean, so it tells me it's finished. Almost ready for the setting. So I went ahead and cut up the cake, and it came out really moist and delicious. They don't have a really sweet flavor, so if you want, you can add a little honey. And when I added some honey to mine, it tasted really good. So I think you're really going to enjoy it, especially if you add it with some tea, delicious tea. And of course a little cream for your tea.